Hello and welcome to an Ace for Waves episode with me, Annabelle. It's been a hot minute, guys. It's been about 2 months, I think, since I last uploaded an episode over the summer. I want to say it was like the beginning of July when I last did one of these, but I'm back and back better than ever, as I like to say. We have a lot to talk about in this episode, which I'm really excited about, because as you may know, as of recording this, tomorrow is September 8th, and September 8th means it's the start of the football season in the NFL. Now, I know that there's been a few NFL games played already. We had Thursday night football, and then we had, well, Friday night football, if we can call it that. So we do have two games underway, but tomorrow marks the start of the official NFL season, and I am really excited about that. I like watching NFL football games. I can't tell you why exactly I like watching them. It's just fun, and that's all I can really say about that topic is that it's fun and I get some enjoyment out of it. But I thought that because tomorrow is NFL season kickoff, why not make a whole episode devoted to NFL, the NFL? I'll give you some of my NFL predictions. We'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the NFL and a lot more. So let's dive right into this thing. The first main point that I want to talk about today is the new era of quarterbacks in the NFL. Last year, we saw a breakout rookie quarterback from the for the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud. He was incredible, unbelievable. He took this Texans football team to a new height and a new standard. I know some of that also has to do with their head coach, D'Amico Ryan, who was a former defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. But CJ Stroud was fun to watch, and he broke quite a few rookie quarterback records. I think he is incredibly talented. We have not seen the last of him, and I feel that he will lead this Texans team again to different, more heights. I think this Texans team is going to be a legitimate threat and contender in the AFC. But another point that I would like to make is that he was not the first overall pick in last year's NFL draft. He was the second overall pick. And why I mention this is because we have this so-called standard that we hold, not just quarterbacks to, but first draft picks too. A lot of people were saying that CJ Stroud should have been the number one overall pick. And if he had been the overall pick, I still think he would have gone to the Carolina. I think the Carolina Panthers would have maybe drafted him. Obviously, Bryce Young was the number one overall pick, and the Panthers selected him. And when you compare Bryce Young to CJ Stroud, their rookie careers were vastly different, right? CJ found success at the Texans, and that can be attributed not just to his talent, but the coaching staff within Houston. The Carolina Panthers fired their head coach mid-season. Their coaching staff made questionable choices at times, and they did not allow Bryce Young to fully develop. I think they just threw him right into their system, and the Panthers were the worst team in the NFL. Bryce Young did not look like a number one overall draft pick. I do think that, however, now that the Panthers have a new coach and they drafted some players in this year's draft to kind of help Bryce Young, I think we will see an improvement. However, I don't think we are going to see the same type of talent in Bryce Young that we saw in CJ Stroud. It will take a little bit to develop him, and that's okay. It's okay for a young quarterback to not come onto the scene and be great right off the bat. We saw that kind of with CJ Stroud from the beginning of the season, from mid-season to the end of the season, and in the postseason, which we once again just attribute that to the culture and the system within the football team. I will say though that Bryce Young has he has the talent. We saw what he did in college and he will get there, but it's just going to take time. And I think we're going to see more of those rookie quarterbacks, especially this year in Caleb Williams, in Jaden Daniels, in Bo Nix. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few more rookie quarterbacks, but the tail of the NFL draft in April of this year was a lot of quarterbacks getting drafted to these teams. Obviously, Caleb Williams is with the Chicago Bears. I think he will have better success in Chicago than Justin Fields did, but that's a different topic for a different day. I think Jaden Daniels is going to thrive well under Dan Quinn in the Commanders. Bo Nix is getting an opportunity with the Denver Broncos, which we'll see how that goes. And I know obviously that JJ McCarthy would have stood out on the Vikings had he not had that season-ending injury right before the beginning of the season. But I'm sure we'll see more of him in future years, future seasons to come. But I'm excited to see this new era of NFL quarterbacks. There's going to be I shouldn't say a lot of, there's going to be quite a few rookies on different teams. There's going to be a few second-year players, seeing how they develop from their first season into their second season. We'll see a couple of third-year players, such as Brock Purdy in the 49ers, seeing what he can do to elevate his game from the past 2 seasons and proving that he will deserve a better contract at the end of the year. We'll see veteran quarterbacks such as Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. We'll see how they continue to grow and develop their game. And of course, we'll also see quarterbacks who are nearing the end of their contracts and vying for extensions. But enough of the new era of quarterbacks. The next point I want to get into for NFL season is quarterback controversies. I know that people who are NFL fans have seen the controversies surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who is going to start week 1? Will their week 1 starter be their quarterback throughout the whole year? And to give some clarity, the Pittsburgh Steelers got Russell Wilson via trade from the Broncos, but the Bears also sent Justin Fields over to Pittsburgh. I want to say that the Steelers let go of their second or third year quarterback in Kenny Pickett. But we have a veteran quarterback in Russell Wilson, who has played for numerous teams over the span of his NFL career. And we have Justin Fields, who wasn't given the opportunity to kind of develop and showcase his abilities in Chicago, but now he might get that opportunity to shine under Mike Tomlin. I say it's a bit of a toss-up between who's going to be the quarterback at the end of the season. Russell Wilson is a good quarterback. I believe he has won a Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks, but he's also getting up there in age, just like Aaron Rodgers, and he might be nearing the end of his prime. Whereas Justin Fields has been an NFL quarterback for a few years now, but we haven't seen truly what he is capable of yet. You have it's the case of you have a younger player who can run the ball, who can make plays, who's more, I shouldn't say athletically capable, but he has a little bit more of mobility and agility. And you have a veteran quarterback who has been in this league for numbers of years and has obviously seen the way the game is played. I'm not going to say which quarterback deserves the starting position over the other, but they are two great quarterbacks who will obviously do good things on the team. It's just a matter of which quarterback impresses Mike Tomlin more and which quarterback makes the most of the opportunities and chances presented to them. Another quarterback controversy that we could talk about is over in Dallas. Now, you might be saying, Annabelle, why is there quarterback controversies in Dallas? Dak Prescott is the starter, and he's been the starter for 8 years now. But Dak Prescott is also looking to seek a contract extension, and this year is his last year underneath that contract. So Dak needs to have a good year, first of all, for Dallas to even be considered a playoff worthy team. But also, if the Cowboys don't re-sign him at the end of the season or next year, I guess I should say, they have another young quarterback from the 49ers who got traded to the Cowboys, and Trey Lance. We saw a lot of Trey Lance in preseason games, and he has an arm. He can throw the ball, he can run the ball, and I don't think it's a far stretch to say that if Dak is not playing well and not living up to those expectations, we could see Trey Lance take over and start for this Cowboys football team. I don't necessarily think that will happen. I think Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones are firm in their decisions to keep Dak Prescott on the Cowboys and make him the permanent starting quarterback, but you never know. Now, we talked about new eras, quarterback controversies. For those watching, you can't see this listening, but for those watching, I have main points on this whiteboard of things that I want to talk about. So I'm just going through my list here, and there's a lot, but we've gone through 2 main points. Let's talk about the third main point, which is the AFC versus the NFC. The AFC, I don't want to say this without thinking this over through first. Let's preface this quickly. Both conferences, the AFC is the American Football Conference, the NFC is the National Football Conference. Did those two things out of the way quickly. But let's preface this. The AFC has, in my eyes and in my opinion, the better football teams in terms of talent, right? There's a bunch of elite quarterbacks in the AFC. We're talking Patrick Mahomes. We're talking Lamar Jackson. We're talking Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, those types of quarterbacks. And those quarterbacks have seen the playoffs and numerous playoff appearances multiple times. Whereas in the NFC, we still have good quarterbacks, right? There's still Jalen Hurts on the Eagles. There's Dak Prescott on the Cowboys. There's Brock Purdy, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff. But those players combined don't really have the resume to speak for their years of being an NFL quarterback like other AFC teams do. I do think the AFC has more talent. Patrick Mahomes has a great Chiefs team. The Ravens have a good team. The Bills, the Bengals, even the Browns in the AFC, those are all really good teams who are stacked with talent. I think you can also make a case maybe for the Miami Dolphins too. Whereas in the NFC, there's still talent, right? the 49ers are stacked with talent. The Philadelphia Eagles got some really good players in the offseason and during the trade too, which makes them legitimate contenders. The Lions have a great team. The Rams have a good team, but they just don't stick out to you as much as the AFC. I think this year will be the year that we see the AFC teams thrive and have like and their records, overall records mean something. Patrick Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and maybe ever. It might be too early to tell, but he is such a really amazing quarterback who can do just almost about anything, right? Lamar Jackson has the speed, the agility, and the talent to just to stand out as well as do these other AFC quarterbacks. But we could also make a case for like defensively as well. The Cleveland Browns have one of the best defenses in the entire National Football League. The Chiefs had a great defense last year. The Bills had a good defense last year. The NFC didn't really have the defense that stood out, right? We saw the Eagles defense kind of struggle. We saw the Cowboys defense struggle in the postseason. Even the 49ers defense, they were still good, but they didn't really stick out. And I forgot to mention another NFC team in the Green Bay Packers. I think they are going to stand out as playoff contenders as well this year. But again, that's just my opinions and my thoughts. I'd love to hear maybe your guys' thoughts if you think the AFC is going to be better than the NFC. But from what I've observed throughout the last 2 years, the AFC just has more talent and better draft stocks over on that side. And nothing like against the NFC. They're going to have a lot to prove. But again, there's still good teams on the NFC side that will definitely come to light. I think towards the end or mid-season. I don't think we're going to see the NFC team stick out to us as much in the beginning of the season, but as the season kind of progresses and we move into mid-season, end of the season, into the postseason, that's when I think we are going to see the best of those NFC teams. Let's talk about Super Bowl contenders, right? I know that the Chiefs are legitimate Super Bowl contenders in the AFC and yada yada. I know that they are going to go for that Super Bowl three-peat. And I can't say I really disagree. I mean, the Chiefs are Super Bowl contenders for a reason, being last year's Super Bowl champion. But I think the Chiefs are Super Bowl contenders in the AFC. I'm obligated to say the Baltimore Ravens are Super Bowl contenders, but I don't know if I can say that, seeing the way that Lamar Jackson played against the Chiefs in last year's AFC Championship game and the way he played on Thursday Night Football. The Ravens, as I've mentioned before, are a really good football team. However, we haven't seen playoff Lamar at his best yet. And that's why I can say that I don't think the Ravens are Super Bowl contenders because I haven't seen playoff Lamar yet. Lamar does not have a good playoff record in the postseason, same as another quarterback over in the NFC, which we will talk about soon. But I do believe that the Cincinnati Bengals, if Joe Burrow stays healthy, are Super Bowl contenders. Joe Burrow has been to a Super Bowl before. He has played exceptionally well in the Super Bowl, but if he stays healthy, if the players can stay healthy, the Cincinnati Bengals are a big threat to the Kansas City Chiefs. And it wouldn't shock me if the Bengals were to end up as Super Bowl champions next year in next year's Super Bowl. It's been a few years since an NFC team has won the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Chiefs have won 2 straight years. I forgot who won before the Chiefs. I want to say it was an NFC team. It might have, I think the Rams were the last NFC team to win a Super Bowl in the NFC, but I could be mistaken. You can fact check me on that there. But in the NFC for Super Bowl contenders, I'm I think it's I think the 49ers are Super Bowl contenders. I know they were in last year's Super Bowl. I know that they had a chance to win the game and be Super Bowl champions, but there are a few drives and a few plays that just didn't work in their favor. But the 49ers have been to a Super Bowl before. The season before that, they made it to the NFC Championship game where their quarterback got hurt in the first quarter, and that kind of, I don't know, went downhill for them there. I don't know where they were the season before that. I want to say they did make the playoffs, and then about 4 years ago, they were in another Super Bowl with the Chiefs, and lo and behold, lost again. But they are Super Bowl contenders. They still have Deebo Samuel. They still have Brandon Ayuk. They have Trent Williams. They have George Kittle. They have players on defense. They have a great quarterback and a very talented quarterback in Brock Purdy. I think they are Super Bowl contenders again. It'll be interesting to see how this season goes for them. They do have a new defensive coordinator. They still have Kyle Shanahan calling plays, but with Kyle's play calling, we'll see what the defensive coordinator can do on the defensive side. But it's just hard not to pick them as Super Bowl contenders again. Another Super Bowl contender for the NFC, I believe so, that I firmly believe in, is the Detroit Lions. Now, I know the Eagles got Saquon Barkley and they have Jalen Hurts, who's been to a Super Bowl and lost to Patrick Mahomes and all that stuff. And that's valid. Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. The addition of Saquon Barkley as a running back, oh, match made in heaven, all that stuff. But Jared Goff was in the NFC Championship game last year. He should have won. The Detroit Lions should have made it to the Super Bowl, had the second half of the game just not completely fall apart for them. I know that they lost a fumble that the 49ers recovered, which led to a touchdown. I know there were some drives that didn't go work in their favor as well, but they had a four, I don't even think it was 14. They had a 17-point lead and they blew it. They should have been in the Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs, but that's just the way that life goes, and that's just the way that football works. But the Lions are Super Bowl contenders for me because Jared Goff has shown what he can do with his arm. He has shown that he can lead a struggling, maybe struggling is not the right word, but it has been many, many years since the Detroit Lions were in a NFC championship game. And the fact that Jared Goff led that team to where they were from the start of the season to the end of the season is mind-blowing and incredible. But I do think we will see them again in the playoffs. I think with the right, play calling, with the right plays, if they avoid just tiny little mistakes, that they can beat any team in their path. The Philadelphia Eagles, again, are a legitimate contender to be in the Super Bowl, again, with the addition of Saquon Barkley, with the addition of some new players offensively and defensively. I think the Packers are playoff contenders. We'll see what Jordan Love can do in his, I think this is either his third or fourth season as an NFL quarterback, but he really stood out at the end of last season. We'll see what he can do with the Packers. We'll see what Brock can do with the 49ers. See maybe how Matthew Stafford can kind of come back and lead his Rams team to a playoff to be in the playoffs at the end of the season. And we'll also see if the Dallas Cowboys can win a playoff game in January. What's at stake for this season? I just want to talk about one thing that's at stake, right? And if my brothers are listening or watching to this one's for you guys. There's a lot at stake for Dak Prescott. There's a lot at stake for the Dallas Cowboys. If you really think about it, right? This is Dak's ninth year in the NFL. I think it's his ninth year with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm trying to think of how I want to word this and describe this quickly. Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. And for the narrative to be that Dak has not shown us he's capable of being a good quarterback in the NFL is just out in my mind. That's outrageous. He is a good quarterback who can make plays with his arms, who can run the football, who's a good playmaker, and he has the poise of just leadership and confidence, right? He can win in the regular season. He has won back-to-back. He has back-to-back 12-win regular season wins. That's impressive. That stands out. But in the postseason, just like with Lamar Jackson, the playoff record doesn't show us that. I believe that his playoff record is 2-7 or 2-8. That's not good. And the Cowboys have made it to the playoffs back-to-back, I think back-to-back seasons, but they just can't win in the postseason. And I know that some of that blame goes to the quarterback, right? The quarterback has shown us that he can't show up when it matters the most. But instead of just blaming the quarterback, there's more blame to go around, such as we can start with the offensive coordinator. In the divisional playoff round in 2022, the Cowboys were playing the 49ers. The final score was 19-12. The Cowboys had 12. The 49ers had 19. Kellen Moore's play calling in that game, I was there watching it and being like, what is the goal? What are you trying to achieve that game? Because the Cowboys defense did their job. They held an elite 49ers offense to 19 points. That is impressive. I don't know if any other NFL team during that season held the 49ers to that many points. Maybe a few teams managed to do that. But the Cowboys defense held that 49ers offense to 19 points. The Cowboys offense scored 12. Dak did throw a few interceptions during that game, which again, that blame should go to him. That's his fault. But Dak wasn't also put into a safe haven, or he also wasn't put in the best position to thrive under there. Kellen Moore was calling plays that I just had me confused and mind boggled. They didn't utilize the run game all that much. They had Dak throwing a lot of passes that ended up being intercepted. I don't think Kellen Moore came prepared for that game at all. And some of that blame, again, should be put on Dak for not, I shouldn't say some of the blame shouldn't be put on Dak for that loss. I think the blame should be put on him for his interceptions that he should have known better not to throw. But the overall play calling for that game and the way the Cowboys offense was set up, most of that blame should be shifted to Kellen Moore. Now, last year's playoff game against the Green Bay Packers, we can go back to the play call, the questionable play calling that was done by Mike McCarthy. But this time, the Cowboys defense looked like they didn't know what to do. It didn't show up. The defense was, to put it quite frankly, terrible. And then I was there watching Dan Quinn and again being like, what's the game plan? What are you doing? That Cowboys defense just looked lost the whole entire football game. And you saw the Packers offense just marching down the field and scoring touchdown after touchdown. By halftime, the score was, I forget what the score was at halftime. All I know is that the Cowboys were down miserably. Now, to be fair though, at the final overall record at the end of the game, the Cowboys did come back a little bit. That's only because they had Dak just throwing the ball a lot instead of running the ball. But I believe they only lost by 14 or 7. I think they only lost by 14 or 17, I want to say. Again, I would have to fact check that. But it's like 2 touchdown scores or 2 touchdowns and a field goal. The loss was bad. I'm not denying that. The Cowboys got humiliated by the Green Bay Packers. And that blame, again, can be put on Dak, but we should also split that blame in half. Some of that should go to Mike McCarthy and his coaching and play calling, and some of that should also be shifted to Dan Quinn and his defensive scheme that he put together at what seemed like it was the last minute. The Cowboys weren't the only team who struggled in the playoffs. If you recall, the Philadelphia Eagles started out their season 10-1 and lost the last 6 of their 7 games. They lost to the Arizona Cardinals, which the Arizona Cardinals, I think, finished their season with 5 wins. The Eagles lost to the Cardinals, just like the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals at the beginning of the season as well, which I do know that Eagles fans made fun of Cowboys fans for, and then karma kind of fed them. But what made that loss really interesting was the fact that the Cardinals-Eagles game was a chance for the Eagles to secure the overall number 2 seed, which meant that if they had beaten the Cardinals, they would have gotten an extra home playoff game. But because they lost, the 49ers got the overall number 1 seed, which meant that they got home field advantage throughout the entirety of the playoffs, and the Dallas Cowboys got the number 2 seed, which really didn't matter in the end. But if the Cowboys had won against the Packers, they would have had a divisional game at home instead of having to go away to play. I do want to say the Eagles did get home field advantage against the Bucks, but the Eagles scored 9 points in their playoff game. They didn't even score a touchdown, which is more disappointing in my eyes when a team has to kick 3 field goals and can't even score an offensive touchdown compared to the Dallas Cowboys, who did score touchdowns, but just got outplayed by the Packers. And the Bucks were good, but they weren't like elite, so to speak. So it's not like the Eagles lost to a really great team. They again got outplayed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just like the Dallas Cowboys got outplayed by the Green Bay Packers. So I think that's what's at stake for this season. The Cowboys have a lot to prove. Dak Prescott has to prove that last season he can be as good in the regular season last year, and this year he has to prove that he's worthy of that contract extension. I think the defense has a lot to prove. If they has a lot to prove in terms of showing up in big games. The Cowboys have a new defensive coordinator. We'll see how he operates with the Dallas defense. We'll see kind of if Micah Parsons can show up in big moments as well. But there's a lot at stake for the Dallas Cowboys in my eyes. And I know that this is Mike McCarthy's last year under contract as well. So we'll see if he can prove that he has shown enough to remain the Cowboys head coach at the end of the season. Enough of what's at stake. We're just breezing through all these main points, guys. We're halfway there. Let's talk about week 1 matchups that I'm excited for. Obviously, we have Monday Night Football, Jets and 49ers. We're going to see Aaron Rodgers again for the first time in a year since he tore his Achilles during, I think, the very first play or the very first drive of last season. It will be, I think it's going to come full circle for Aaron Rodgers. He's a really good quarterback. He's a future Hall of Fame contender, but I think it's going to be fun to watch him and see. And then with the 49ers as well, we'll get to see Brock Purdy on the field again, see what he can do with the 49ers offense. But I'm just really excited to watch that game. And it'll also be the first time for Cyclone fans that we'll see Breece Hall and Brock Purdy together again on the same field since college. Breece is the running back for the New York Jets, and Brock is obviously the quarterback for the 49ers, who was also quarterback at Iowa State. So that's one matchup that I'm really looking forward to. I think it's going to be a closer game than what we think with the Jets offense, but I don't know if the 49ers defense is going to match up with the Jets offense very well, and vice versa. I don't know if the Jets defense is ready to face a good 49ers offense. But I think the score is going to be closer than what we think. I do think it's all going to be within a touchdown at least, maybe even within a field goal. But I think it's going to be a really close game and a really good game. Another week 1 matchup I'm looking forward to seeing is the Rams and the Lions. We saw the Rams and the Lions play in last year's NFC divisional round. We'll see again Matthew Stafford versus Jared Goff, who were on opposing teams. Matthew Stafford was the Lions quarterback once upon a time, and Jared Goff was the quarterback for the Rams, and now they're on opposing teams. Goff is the Lions quarterback, Stafford's the Rams quarterback. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm excited to see those quarterbacks again. I'm excited to see those teams again. And that is Sunday Night Football, which I would hope gather a bunch of views and attraction from the media. I think it's going to be a really good game, and I'm excited to watch it and see it. Another week 1 matchup is the Broncos versus the Seahawks. And I included this because we're going to see a Seahawks-led offense by Geno Smith. Geno stood out a little bit to me last season from the Seahawks. I wouldn't say he's on the elite level of quarterbacks, but he's also not a terrible quarterback. He's right in the middle. He can make plays with his arm. I don't think he's very mobile in terms of, being a running quarterback, but he's still good. And I'm excited to see the rookie that is Bo Nix and see if he can take this Broncos team to more wins than they had last season. The situation with Russell Wilson and the Broncos last year wasn't handled very well by the coaching staff and by the Broncos organization. So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop Bo Nix and how they treat them compared to how they treated Russell Wilson. So that's a matchup that I'm just looking forward to seeing. I'm interested to see if the Seahawks can have as good of a season as they did last year. but I'm also excited to see a rookie quarterback play in his first regular season game. That is Bo Nix. And you can make the same argument for Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, and I believe one other quarterback who got drafted. But I think it was the Falcons quarter. I think the Falcons drafted a quarterback too. I forget his name, but I know Kirk Cousins is on the Falcons now, so we'll see what happens. And then another week 1 matchup, it's the Cowboys versus Browns. And I chose it specifically because I want to see how Deshaun Watson matches up against the Dallas defense. Deshaun Watson hasn't played an NFL game since 2022. I don't think he played at all in 2023. The last time we saw Deshaun Watson was in 2022, and he was not good. There's only been one season where Deshaun Watson has done really well. So coming back this season and this year on the Cleveland Browns, the Browns are stacked defensively. They have a few offensive weapons, but it's going to be the matter of how Deshaun Watson responds to the criticism thrown at him and see how he responds by having this major comeback story and leading the Browns hopefully to another playoff appearance. If Joe Flacco could take the Browns to the playoffs in the postseason, I think Deshaun Watson can do the same thing. Again, they're both very different quarterbacks, but Joe Flacco was literally sitting at home on his couch when he got the call to go be an NFL quarterback. So anything's possible, right? And I'm also curious to see how Dak does against a really good defensive team. The Cowboys have shown us that they don't really play well against good defensive teams. We saw that in last year's game against the 49ers, where they lost 49-19 or something like that. I want to say they also got pretty outblown not outblown. They did lose pretty badly to the Miami Dolphins as well. But it's gonna be a test for both quarterbacks. It's gonna be a test for Deshaun Watson, and it's also gonna be a test for Dak Prescott. And now, finally, we've reached. It's really sunny right now, guys. So if you just see me squinting, it's just light coming from my window where I'm filming this. Obviously, if you're listening, you can't see that. But if you're watching right now, I just want to apologize for the lighting at the moment. But we've reached our end segment of Annabelle's NFL predictions for this year. I made predictions about a month ago in August. I wrote them down on a piece of paper, and I totally forgot what I wrote down. So we're just going to restructure this, and maybe some of my answers have changed from a month ago. If I can find the paper, maybe I'll share it and see if I say the same things as I did then. My predictions for best team, overall best team, it's the Kansas City Chiefs, just for obvious reasons, with their quarterback, with their tight end, the wide receivers that they have, their defense, their head coach, all of that combined. It's hard not to pick them as the best team. But an argument is also made for the 49ers as well. But I think the Chiefs have a better understanding of who they are as a football unit. They've figured out what they're best at. The 49ers have a little bit of work to do establishing who they are defensively, working underneath a new defensive coordinator, and some of the play calling abilities as well. So that's why I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs as the best team. The worst team, I think, this year, it's kind of hard to say because the Broncos were pretty bad last year. I think the Commanders are gonna be a decent team this year. I can't say that they're gonna be the worst team. The Cardinals were also kind of not good last year, but I think it's a toss-up between the Cardinals and the Panthers. I don't know if the Cardinals could get any better than last year, even though they did beat the Eagles. But I don't know how Kyler Murray is going to do this year. I do think the Cardinals will kind of struggle maybe a little bit more. So that's why I'm going with them as my worst team. But I don't know how the Panthers could get any better than last season as well. They I they might have the same record as they did last year, maybe even worse. But it will be it's gonna be I'm curious to see how Bryce Young does in his second year and see if the Panthers offense and head and coaching, how they can better develop him. Best offense, however, I think the best offense this year in the NFL. I know I said the best team is the Chiefs. I think the best offense has to go to the Philadelphia Eagles, right? With Jalen Hurts, with Saquon Barkley. I don't know if they still have oh what I'm trying to think of it. I don't know if they still have Devontae Adams. No, I did. I wonder if or Devontae Smith. Sorry, I was thinking of another wide receiver, and AJ Brown. I don't know if they still. I don't know if that team still has those wide receivers. I could be wrong, but I think the Eagles are going to be a great offensive team, right? So yeah, that's why I'm going with best offense is the Philadelphia Eagles. The best defense, again, goes to the Cleveland Browns. They still have Myles Garrett. The Browns have been a great defensive team for the past few seasons. I think they were top at least top 5 in defense, if not top 3. I think they were even better than the 49ers defense at one point or another. So that's why I'm going with best defense to the Cleveland Browns. The Browns did beat the 49ers last year. Uh I yeah, I know they did beat the 49ers. They beat I don't know if the Cowboys played the Browns last year or not. But again, I think yeah, I'm just rambling right now. Best defense, Cleveland Browns. Best special teams. The Dallas Cowboys for the sole and primary reason that their kicker is just one of the best kickers that I have ever seen in many years. Brandon Aubrey is a great kicker. He has made 60-yard field goal attempts. I don't know of any other kicker who is making 60-yard field goal attempts other than maybe Justin Tucker, right? So I'm going with best special team to the Dallas Cowboys. They still have Brandon Aubrey. They have their punter, Anger, who's a good punter. The Cowboys special teams has had questionable stuff happen to them a few times, but overall, I just haven't seen a better field goal unit or a better punting unit than the Dallas Cowboys. So that's why I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys for the best special teams. My breakout team, when I say breakout team, I mean the team who's going to stand out the most, who's going to have a breakout season this year. And I forgot who I said the first time, but I think last year's breakout team was the Houston Texans. I think this year's breakout team is going to be the Washington Commanders, because Dan Quinn has a head coaching job now, new head coaching job now. The Commanders have a young quarterback in Jaden Daniels. I think the Commanders are going to surprise us, even though they're in a conference with the Eagles and the Cowboys and the Giants, but the Giants have never really been good in the last 3 or 4 seasons. But I think the Commanders are going to stick out. Another breakout team, the Chicago Bears with Caleb Williams. And I think even maybe the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins. So there's a few breakout teams that I just named, but the one that I'm going to stick to the most with right now is the Washington Commanders with Dan Quinn, with Jaden Daniels. There is a probability that the Commanders could beat the Eagles and could beat the Cowboys. It is possible, but the struggle bus team, this is the team that I think is going to have kind of a downfall from last season to this season. We kind of saw the struggle bus team and the Eagles towards the end of the season. We kind of saw that with the Miami Dolphins to a certain degree, but I think my team who's going to hit the shorter bus this year, ooh, I really don't think the Cowboys are going to like so struggle as so much. I really don't think that, but I, I've named a few NFC teams. And my struggle bus team. Oh, that's hard. That is actually hard. Because I'm trying to think of teams that had good seasons last year who might hit the struggle bus this year. Oh, that's not that shit. We're gonna angle this a little. Oh, that doesn't work. Just trying to angle my computer to block out some of the sun. Trying to think of a struggle bus team. I think actually I'm gonna go with the Miami Dolphins as my struggle bus team this year because we saw the Dolphins season. We saw them lose. I think was it the Dolphins who lost by 60 or 40 or 50? Or was that the Denver Broncos? I don't know if that was the Broncos or the Dolphins, but I do know that one team lost by like 40 points, right? Maybe that was the Broncos. Maybe I'm thinking of the Broncos now. But I want to say it was the Miami Dolphins. I'll have to look at that later. It was either the Broncos or the Dolphins, but for some reason I'm getting the feeling that it was the Dolphins who lost by 40 some points or something like that. But I do think it's going to be the Dolphins this year because I think Tua's losing the end of his so-called primetime era. Don't get me wrong. He has the athletic ability. He has the athletic IQ to be of a good quarterback, but he just hasn't made the most of it. And we don't talk about Tua being on the elite QB level like we do Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, all these other quarterbacks, right? So I will say my struggle bus team is going to be the Miami Dolphins. And the team, my MTP, the most to prove this year. The Houston Texans have there's a few teams that can fall underneath this category. The Houston Texans have a lot to prove in terms of proving that last season wasn't a fluke and they can be just as good. The Green Bay Packers have a lot to prove with their quarterback and Jordan Love, proving that they can again, if they can raise their game offensively and defensively. I do know that they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles last night, but they didn't lose by that much. I want to say they lost by four or 5 points. So it was still a good game, but they have a lot to prove. The Eagles definitely have a lot to prove in terms of bouncing back from their 7-game losing streak at the end of the season to staying consistent this season. The Cowboys have a lot to prove with their quarterback fighting for a contract extension, with multiple players still needing to get paid, such as CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons, and having a lot to prove in terms of, again, winning in the regular season and transferring those wins into the postseason. The Baltimore Ravens have a lot to prove as well, with Lamar Jackson proving that he is an elite quarterback and leading his teams to wins, but transferring those wins into the postseason as well. Even the Bills have a lot to prove this year. They were in the playoffs last year. They did lose. They did lose to the Chiefs in the divisional round, but they have to prove that they are a Super Bowl worthy team. They have to prove that they can work together, find ways to win, and find ways to beat these good teams. The Dolphins have, I was going to say that I think the Dolphins have some stuff to prove. I think Tua has to prove that he can be on that list of great quarterbacks, and the way that we talk and mention his game. Even these new rookie quarterbacks have something to prove that they can excel and thrive underneath the bid light. So I don't think I just didn't name one team. I think I named almost half of the teams in the NFL. But every team has something to prove, right? You just can't pick one team. Every team has something to prove, whether that be proving their offensive skills, proving their defensive skills, their special team skills, play calling, decision making, team chemistry, etc., etc. And there's that. So we went through all of my main points here. We are going to wrap up this episode. Thank you guys for listening or watching, however you're consuming this content right now. I had a lot of fun talking about this today. Let me know who your favorite NFL team is. Which team are you rooting for the most? Who do you think is going to be in the Super Bowl this year? And tell me, which team do you think is going to be the worst team in the NFL? Because right now, for me, it's a toss-up between two teams, but I could be sorely mistaken as well. And with that, just want to say, go football. Good luck to all your favorite teams who are playing tomorrow or have already played. To my youngest brother who might be listening or watching this right now, I am sorry that your Packers lost, but hey, it was a good game. And to my other brother who also may or may not be watching this right now, go Cowboys. I don't know how they're going to do this year, bro, but I'm hoping that they can win in the postseason this year. This year might be the year. And to all the other football fans out there, have a great time watching football tomorrow. I will be keeping up with some of the scores. I will be keeping up with some of the games, not all of them, some of them, but it's football season, everybody. Let's get ready for a really interesting next 3-4 months. And with that, I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.